we're going to talk about the two things that writers and content creators and photographers really hate talking about: social media and AI. So AI will take our jobs. Ooh, see, we're getting spicy already. Oh, great, there's another part. If we do not adapt. So this conversation, this topic we're talking about today is the adaptation of our industry to making sure we have a future. So this isn't the first technology shift we've seen throughout time. Our landscape is constantly changing, and those who have been doing this for a long time have seen many shifts. I know we're all sick about hearing about AI. Every conference we go to, it's the hot button topic, and it's mostly a lot of hemming and hawing about how terrible it is and how worried we are. But this conversation this morning, this keynote, is designed to hopefully give us a little hope. I'm a firm believer, to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we've been. Throughout history, we have had time and time again where creatives and people in this industry have been threatened by technology shifts. The printing press, coming out in the 1440s, it feared it would kill the handwritten book. Well, and it did. People were fearing that it was going to kill the scribe. But instead, it created so many more jobs. Writers, editors, illustrators now had opportunities to have their words broadcast to the world through printed book. Literacy exploded, and none of us in this room would have jobs if it wasn't for the printing press being invented. In 1839, this one's obviously more personal to me, the daguerreotype was invented. And there was a huge concern that this would kill painting. But painting is still around. If anything, it's more valuable now than it ever was. But back before daguerreotypes were invented, painting was used to just simply document the world around us, to document battles, to, if you were wealthy enough, to take your family portrait. Those sort of things went away to a degree. Instead, what the invention of photography did was, one, it made it more accessible for people to have photos of their family members taken and to document history, and it freed up painters to be more creative. So many movements in the painting world came out of the invention of photography. In the 1930s, 1940s, TV comes out. And what happens when TV comes out? Well, this is going to kill the radio. Well, what do we all still have in our cars today? We all still have radio. But radio adapted. No longer were we all sitting around the family fireplace and listening to radio talks and plays on the radio. Instead, we'd turn on the TV for our news. But throughout time, radio has adapted. We have streaming. We have podcasts. Podcasts is one of the fastest growing industries in the world. And we are still listening to the spoken word. TV didn't kill radio, it killed what we knew about radio. The one I don't have on here is in the 1990s, late 1990s, early 2000s, blogs came out. And I know a lot of traditional journalists were like, oh, that's the end. Now everybody's just going to have a blog. Traditional journalism will die. But, once again, we adapted. A lot of the news went online. Newspapers have websites, magazines have websites. Blogs became a voice for people that wanted to get their word out there that didn't necessarily have an editor, didn't have a platform. Now anybody has the opportunity to speak. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, mid-2000s, 2010s, social media. And I began my photography journey in about 2012, kind of right when social media was launching. And I remember older photographers telling me a couple of things. One, they told me not to waste my time being a photographer. There's no money in it. There's no clients, especially being a travel photographer. That industry didn't exist. It was so small. And prior to social media, brands and destinations might do a couple shoots a year that they would use for their website, or a brand might use it for their catalog, but they weren't doing a lot of photo shoots. What actually happened with social media was everybody was concerned about, well, now we have this thing in our pocket that can do the job of photographers. What do we need photographers for? But instead, it became one of the largest platforms for a portfolio for a photographer. And also, brands actually needed more photography because now they needed to post daily, and they needed to hire photographers to get quality content to put out in the world to stand out. in a sea of bad photography, which we all know there's a lot out there. Resistance mindset. I put this photo of a dinosaur because, well, we don't want to become dinosaurs. This resistance mindset comes from a feeling of comfort. We don't want to change, we don't want to adapt, we don't want to move, because we've already invested so many of our years and time and energy into what we know. And this is how we've done it, this is how we're going to do it forever. I know a lot of photographers who didn't adapt to social media who are no longer photographers. There's also a lot of photographers who didn't adapt to social media and they're doing fine. But they adapted in other ways. In order to keep moving forward, we must adapt. 3 years ago, I was giving a presentation about short-form vertical video to a Montana Governor's Conference on Tourism. And this was in the early days of short-form vertical video. Instagram Reels was fairly new. TikTok was starting to blow up. And I remember having a pretty good audience, and there was one guy in the room who really didn't like me. And, he was very smug. And later that night at the bar, he came and approached me as I was talking to somebody and answering their questions. And he interrupted me, and he basically just yelled at me for the next 20 minutes. And I'm a very large man, so I remained calm. I'm in a room full of my clients, and obviously I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize that. But he basically sat there and told me that I don't understand, that young people don't understand. And he said, I'm up here talking about my millions of views and thousands of followers, and he is on the ropes because he's a magazine ad salesman. And somehow it is my fault that his magazine hasn't adapted to the new world, and therefore he is struggling. And I have adapted. That's that resistance mindset. So how do we break it? We're going to talk about this, but staying curious, experimenting, getting out in the world, trying different things. We're going to talk about AI. This image on the left, or the two images on the left, the bottom one is mine. One day I was scrolling through Facebook, and I see this page, I love nature. That is an AI carbon copy of my image. That pissed me off. And I was like, what do I even do about this? Because this isn't copyright. Technically, they made a new image. The world doesn't know how we do with this yet, right? Because there's no legislation, there's no feeling of what we do about these sort of situations, about people using my images or our images to create new content. And this is the problem with AI. AI is built on patterns from existing human work. It scours the web, combs the web, looking for our images and our written word, and it's using that to then tell people the same regurgitated facts that we've already given people. But this is actually AI's downfall. AI cannot create emotion. It is not a person. AI cannot do what we do. If I ask AI to give me a 2,500 word blog about Chattanooga and what should I do, fantastic. It's probably going to steal somebody else's blog, and it's going to give us, go to this restaurant, hike this trail, do this. But what it can't do is it can't bring human feeling and human emotion into its work, right? It can't interview the brewer in town who learned how to make beer from his grandfather. It can't do that. It can only do what's already existing in the world. And I like to use this example of, I shoot a lot of rodeo. And my job is to document that rodeo. And sure, if somebody asked AI to create an image of a cowboy in an arena, sure. It'll give you one. It'll give you one that probably you could use for an ad, or you could use it for a billboard even. But what it can't create is it can't create the winning ride. It can't create the shot. It cannot evoke that emotion, and it cannot give you the actual rider, the actual horse, the actual position of that horse, and the actual arena itself. It can give you a generic cowboy on a generic horse in a generic arena. And sure, as AI is going to get better, it's going to get better at replicating these things, but it won't be able to create something new. I like to use this example, going back to painting. What's worth more? The Mona Lisa, which everybody's standing in line to view for hours and hours and hours. I have viewed it myself. It's very small. What's worth more? Is it that, or is it the mug in the gift shop with the Mona Lisa painted or printed on the mug? Original work has value. And it will continue to have value as we go forward in time. When brands miss the point of AI. So 98% of consumers agree that authentic, we love that word authentic, right? We've been saying it for 10 years, drilled it into the ground. The number of times I have a client come to me and say, can we just get authentic imagery? Fantastic. But 98% of consumers agree that authentic images and video are pivotal in establishing trust. So last year, Germany, their tourism board, they launched Emma. I'm going to see if this will play.
Hi, I'm Emma, and I am the first AI influencer of travel destination Germany. I'm excited to take you on an amazing journey through this fascinating and inspiring.
Okay, we're going to stop that because that just... No, this is not it. Whatever it is, it's not it. And the comments said this. So obviously this video went mega viral, millions and millions of views, which Tourism Germany could be like, oh, that's a massive success, right? We got millions of views. Yeah, until you read the comments. People were not happy about this. Everybody from influencers already exist, photographers that exist, writers that exist, but also just the general population. Nobody liked this. This is not what people want. And sure, it got millions of views, but it only ended up getting about 12,000 followers in the last year off of probably 100 million views. That's a horrible ROI for Germany. There was a lot of backlash in this. And the thing is, you think about it. AI can replicate travel, it can replicate a German city, but who wants to watch a video to get ideas of where I want to travel to and where I want to go to using fake imagery? Because sure, Germany's programming this and saying, hey, I want it to look great. I don't want there to be trash on the ground. I don't want there to be homeless in the streets. They can program it to say that. So who's going to believe an AI influencer? And they're still trying this. They've kind of phased it out a little bit because the backlash was so strong. They're still kind of trying it. But this is an example of what doesn't work. And I believe firmly that the future of crediting creatives is here. And what that means, I've already started seeing it happen, is as AI gets better and it gets more realistic, it's actually going to be more important for brands and destinations, newspapers and journalists to have a byline of a real human being with real stories and real connection to the world we live in. And then it comes to Instagram. I've seen it myself. Musicians with a concert poster. They're crediting the designers now. For a long time, that never happened, right? I paid for this. I don't need to credit the designer. Brands are saying, oh, I'm now going to credit the photographer to prove that I used a real person with real experience to capture real products. And I think that going forward is going to be more and more important.
Hi.
No. Let's talk about some case studies. How to not only survive, but thrive in this new world we live in. The digital age has allowed us to stop asking for permission to create. And I am proof of that. Here we go. This is my book. And I'm the world's worst Keynote because I brought 2 of these. Because they're 5 pounds each. I'm not bringing 50 of these in my suitcase. But if I was smart, I'd be like, hey, come over here and I'll sign a book and you can have one. No. I brought this to prove a point. That sometimes, in order to go forward, we need to go back. And in a world that is online, and everybody spends all of their time scrolling their phones, I'm guilty of it too. We spend all day scrolling our laptop screens, and then when we need a break from our medium-sized screen, we take a break and we look at our small-sized screen. And then when we really need a break, we look at our bigger screen to watch a movie, while also looking at our small screen to see what's going on online. And in that world, we need real. And that's why it's been my long-time dream to produce a book. And if you were to go back 20 years ago, and I wanted to try and do this book, it probably would have been impossible. One, I would have been 14. So that would have been a little difficult. But also, the upfront cost of producing a book, for those who have done books in this room, know that producing a book and self-publishing a book is a lot of work, especially a 12 by 12 gold-foiled coffee table book. Shout out Friesens, printed my book, who I met them at the Casper conference years ago. So you never know who you're going to meet here. I met them at Casper, and I told them that was, 4 years ago? 3 years ago? 3? I told them I wanted to make a book. It took a little while, but I finally came out with my book this past June. I came out with my book, and it was a little bit of a gamble because just the printing costs alone were $50,000. Not talking about the illustrator fees, the editor fees, samples, the whole process, right? And if this was 20 years ago, prior to me having social media and the world we live in on the internet, me self-publishing a book with 3,000 copies at $50,000 would have been next to impossible. And either I would have had to find a publisher, or I would have had to just not do it. And through social media, through my audience, and through the power of Kickstarter and crowdfunding, I was able to raise $50,000 in my first month of pre-orders, fully funding the book before it even came out. Woo! And how I did it, and my lesson here is I'm not trying to sit here and brag, but I want to provide proof that people still want real. I remember reading online, looking up about photo books, right? Doing tons of research before I dove into this world. And everything I read said that photo books are dead. Books in general are dead. Nobody wants a photo book. Because why would I pay $80 for a photo book when I could go on your website and just scroll through your images? Why would I want a book? Well, we have proven people still want these. And sometimes to go forward, we have to go backwards. And how we did it was we leveraged this power, put that down, leveraging the power of we. When I did my messaging on social media, all I constantly talked about was we made this book happen. It wasn't I made this book happen, it was we. Because it was. I could not have made this book without loyal people coming and finding and buying my book. And now that it's out in the world, I can use traditional methods. I can get it in bookstores. I can wholesale it. I can work with people to get the book out there. But doing this all online, producing something old school, but using new school methods. I also used hatred as a form of marketing. It's fantastic. I'm going to read this to you because I've got it right here. I got a great quote from a random woman on Facebook who I've never spoken to, who messaged me and said, maybe consider a project where the book is easy for both children and older adults to handle. A paperback cover could also work. It's a coffee table book. I don't know how many children have coffee tables. Your life's work doesn't need to be a 10-pound doorstop. It could be useful in pressing flowers. This is my favorite part. Seek humility in life. It's a much easier road. Never spoken to this woman in my entire life. But I have her to thank because I screenshotted that naturally and I put it on my Instagram stories. And I was like, love, the book wasn't even out yet. So love these great reviews I'm getting already. I should print this on the cover. And I said, and I put it on my Instagram story and I said, everybody, use the code doorstop and you'll get 10% off. And that led to a quick $1,500 in sales in less than 24 hours. Sweet. Thanks, random woman on Facebook. So we proved that print isn't dead, but the delivery of it somewhat is. But we are now allowed to self-publish, to work on these things ourselves, to get our words out there without big backing, without a publisher. And because of that, I was able to control every little detail of my book. I'm sure Friesens hated how many times I called them on a daily basis and been like, no, I want to move that 1 inch over. I want to do this. I need the gold foil. I need this. I need that. Because I'm just a micromanager like that. But we can now do this. So another example is Substack. How many people are here on Substack already? Probably a handful. Good. Awesome. Love it. I'm not on Substack, so I'm not going to talk too much about the Substack stuff because I'm not on it. But Substack is a way to, once again,